See how just allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to recognize those uncomfortable emotions can make an enormous impact in your lived reality and in the choices you make from day to day. Happiness does not mean being happy all the time. Wow. Hello. Welcome back to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today is going to be a great day. And yes, you heard me right. Happiness does not mean being happy all the time. It doesn't. I mean, that is the big surprise and new perspective that you need to hear today. Living a life of happiness does not mean feeling happy all the time. And when I say today is going to be a great day, it never means today is going to be a series of happy. In fact, if that's what you're experiencing, it's very likely you are bypassing those very important emotions that are so uncomfortable but need to be felt. In fact, true happiness is the permission to experience the full range of emotions, even as a doctor, even as a healthcare provider, even as a leader of your team, even as a responsible and dedicated and loving partner, even as a parent. You know, it's so interesting for so many people that I talk to. I realize we've been practicing for decades not to feel our feelings. For decades. So if this conversation today is feeling uncomfortable or you get immediate resistance that says, whoa, this is insane, please know you are not alone, because that resistance is just enormous discomfort because maybe you haven't felt feelings for a long, long time. And don't have any shame about that, please, because in our society, we have been perpetuating this myth that in order to be strong or resilient or successful or even more highly developed emotionally and personally, you don't feel feelings, that you need to suppress them. I mean, maybe as a child, you grew up in a household where it was not okay to cry. Or when you did, someone immediately tried to make you feel better without allowing you to feel those feelings and process those emotions. Maybe you heard the words, don't cry, it's okay, you're going to be fine, brush it off. Not just when you stubbed your toe, but when your friends all turned against you at school, or when the girls were talking about you behind your back. And you were told, oh, just ignore that. You're better than that. Don't feel your feelings. Brush it off. Don't feel so bad about that. How many times have you told yourself that? Don't be boastful is another one. You know, even the wonderful feelings we were told to stuff down. Don't be so boastful. Don't display and celebrate your wins. Other people might not have gotten so far. You don't want to make them feel bad. In an effort to be nice, and that word's in quotation marks, what we've done is we've stuffed down our feelings. And here's the thing about happiness. If we stuff down some of our feelings, we can't just choose which feelings we're avoiding. We actually prevent ourselves from feeling any of them. We don't have a choice of only feeling these comfortable feelings and not the uncomfortable ones. And if you'll notice, I'm choosing my words very deliberately here. I'm not using the terms positive and negative emotions because that is such a big judgment that we also just subtly include in our lexicon. Negative emotions tend to be things like anger, sadness, frustration, guilt, shame. We call them negative. But really, that's not true. They don't feel very comfortable to experience, but they're not negative. In fact, they're enormously, enormously important, not just in terms of processing, but in terms of insight and understanding. In fact, those uncomfortable emotions like anger can be the source of enormous learning, deep, deep insight into your own understanding. You know, I was talking to a client the other day who was telling me about her experience with a patient. And she said she was in the middle of her workday. She and I have been working together on exploring feeling her feelings. She's definitely noticed that she's taken the heroic role in her family, both her immediate family and her extended family, the heroic role in her business, in terms of her team, the heroic role in terms of her patients and her patient care, that she just rises above always. She's always positive, she's always empowering, and she never allows herself to feel anything other than hopeful and positive. But yet, feelings of frustration and annoyance and a little bit of, although she won't use this word, anger start creeping in. And when they come out sideways, when we least expect them to, is when we know we've been stuffing them down. So she and I have been working on this together about how she can express and feel her emotions to work through them. A foundational practice of living a life of happiness. And, dare I say, living a life of success. See, because we can only get so far in success. And I'm speaking about health, success in our health, finances, success in our financial situation, business growth, success in our possibility of the business and cultivating enormous growth of a business model, success in our family, success in our relationships. All of it requires feeling your feelings, not just action, not just doing all the time. In fact, that will only get us so far. True success comes when we allow ourselves to recognize the critical importance of feeling our human emotions, even the uncomfortable ones. So we were talking about this, and she said, you know, Tarryn, here I am working on feeling my feelings, and a patient triggered me. She was very angry, blameful, and I knew where it was coming from. I knew that she was just feeling scared. She's going through a lot in her life, but she was taking it out on me, and I got angry. And at that moment, I didn't feel like it was appropriate to express my anger to her. And so I didn't. And it didn't feel good. And I could tell now you've alerted me to being aware in my body when I'm experiencing anger. And it bothered me all day. And right there, my friends, is another place in your life where maybe you've learned to suppress your feelings. In our profession. And isn't that true? And with good reason. Is it appropriate for us as healthcare providers to express our anger, our sadness, our fear, our frustration when a patient is triggering us? And I argue, no. I mean, our job when we're caring for patients is to create a safe space, to give them a sense of confidence in our ability to care for them. And when we do that, we shatter their trust. When we let them see that maybe we're acting out of a space of defensiveness or anger or blame, then suddenly as a patient, you don't feel so safe in your provider's hands anymore. I mean, just put yourself in that position for a moment. So is it appropriate in that moment? No. But here's what we didn't learn. How to take that feeling and acknowledge it and process it in a safe space after you've been with that patient. See, because what we've been practicing for so many years is recognizing this is not appropriate for me to yell at my patient or get angry at my patient or to have a tantrum in front of my patient. So we don't. And then what happens? We don't address it. We move on to the next patient. We move on to the next email. We move on to the next task. And we never go back and allow ourselves to process that emotion. And then what happens? It comes out sideways. We snap at a team member. Or We snap at our kids when we get home, when we've been holding it together all day long, suppressing. And then the first thing our kid says, or our husband or our wife says the minute we walk in the door, boom, it comes out. Because our feelings have to be felt. They just do. It's a part of our human experience. You know, not processing your feelings is so supported in the media as well. We have quick fixes, how to feel better. Let me give you a drug. Let me give you a pill. Let me give you this thing to do so you don't have to feel sad, so that you don't have to feel angry. And I also want to acknowledge that many of us have had experiences in our past where it's not safe. It doesn't feel safe to feel angry or sad. We've talked about this before in this space. You know, an example might be maybe you grew up in a household with angry parents and that anger was not safe for you as a child. Maybe that came out at you. Maybe your dad or your mom was one of those people who, just like you, were suppressing their emotions all day long. And when they came home, it came out sideways at you. And maybe that was a threat to your physical safety. Maybe it wasn't even your physical safety. Maybe it didn't mean a fist or a slap, but maybe it meant emotional slap. A deep wound that you've carried with you ever since. And every time you feel that feeling of anger boiling up in you, you press it down, not just because you were taught not to feel the feelings, but because in your body, it doesn't feel safe. Because your subconscious has equated that emotion of anger with not being safe. Here's the thing. Anger is just anger. And it's a human emotion. And we all must feel it in order to feel happy. In order to move beyond that feeling of just feeling numb or feeling disconnected. Were those ear prick up moments for you right there? Have you heard yourself say, I just feel numb. I really can't feel feelings. I've noticed I don't cry easily. I've noticed I don't get angry, but I also don't feel enormous joy. I'm not laughing. In fact, can you remember the last time you laughed? Hey guys, I'm interrupting your podcast episode to let you know about an incredible new program that I am launching in January of 2023. It is specifically for practitioners in medicine and dentistry to help you rediscover happiness and inner fulfillment within your profession and your life. I remember what it was like for me when years ago I was so depressed and anxious and feeling like I had created and built a treadmill I just couldn't get off of, pushing through every day and wishing my life away. This program is the how of how to find happiness in your practice and in your life, because we know that when we feel good, that's when we can do good. Check out thebizofhappiness.com/radical happiness, or click the link in the show notes. I cannot wait to see you there. Can you remember the last time you felt so much love that you thought you would burst? Because those moments necessitate feeling the anger. So much anger you think you'd burst. And here's the permission I want to give you. Because another thing that I hear from people is that they're afraid to feel anger, specifically anger. It's interesting. Sadness, we allow ourselves. But anger is one of those tricky emotions that we tend to have a lot of discomfort with, and fear around experiencing and processing. And so one of the things I often hear is, if I allow myself to get angry, am I going to become an angry person? Almost like we think that we're going to get stuck in that emotion. Like, I don't know when I'll ever stop. And will I ever be able to return to calm and joy and happiness and love and forgiveness and compassion? And the answer is yes. You can feel and process anger, move through it until your body has had its fill, and then you can allow yourself to let some of those things go. But the important part is processing the anger first. And why? The reason why is what I alluded to earlier, and that is the deeper understanding, the learning that has to happen along the way. When that patient triggers you and you feel anger, and you can't express it in the moment because you are now a provider taking care of a patient. You've made a promise to do no harm. You've made a promise to care for them in the moment. And side note, I am not implying that we ever need to put ourselves up for abuse from a patient. That's a discussion for a different day. But let's put ourselves in a moment where a patient is just being fearful of themselves, and the only way they know how to do is blame and anger, and you feel triggered, and then you suppress it. You let the patient know, don't worry, you're in good hands. I've got you. We walk through this procedure. Now you get to lunchtime or the end of the day, and you recognize, I need to process that emotion. How do you do it? Well, there's some beautiful, beautiful ways. I don't know about in your town, but in many big cities, they have these incredible, beautiful places called rage rooms. Rage rooms. And it's such a brilliant concept because it allows you a safe space to get out your anger and your emotions. And when you go and book an appointment, they literally are in 5 or 10 minute increments. So I'm not talking about raging for an hour, but at these rage rooms, they have porcelain that people have donated when they've cleaned out their homes or their storage units. They have TVs, they have baseball bats, they have paint you can smash against the wall. You can physically work out your aggression in a safe space all by yourself. Beautiful way to process your emotions. Another way that I really love is scream therapy. I know, isn't that interesting? Just me saying that might be triggering you right now. Because once again, hear the insight that your body is gifting you right now. If I said scream therapy and immediately you froze a little, maybe there was someone who yelled when you were younger. And screaming and yelling is an indicator in your body that it's not safe. And when I said that, didn't you feel it in your body first? Before you even processed that in your forebrain, before you even judged my statement, didn't you feel it in your body first? Interesting. Let that be the learning. Ooh, she said scream therapy, and I got scared. My body physically reacted. All scream therapy is allowing yourself to yell. Not at someone, but just in the safety of your own space. My favorite place, in the car. I love to do it in the car because there's no one else around. I drive to a secluded place, the pier or a beach or a parking lot that's no one's visiting. I turn the music up and I scream to get my anger out. I feel my anger. I allow myself to feel the anger, yes, even at that patient. Even if it doesn't make sense. Even if you know that that patient was just in a fearful space themselves and they're just trying to find some form of control and blame to feel better about themselves, because blame feels so much better than hopelessness. Blame feels so much better than helplessness. So they're just finding blame. We know this to be true. Even if you know that, let yourself feel the anger and process it out. And scream therapy is one of my favorite ways to process my emotions because it always ends up, for me, in tears. And tears are just, a friend of mine said this and I love this, tears are just emotions leaving your body. Isn't that great? Where we can feel and find release. And I promise you, you will stop crying. It's another fear some people have is if I start to cry and feel the sadness, I'm scared I'll never stop. You will. Your body eventually stops and the tears dry up. I promise. No one is still crying after 10 years of crying. But allowing yourself to process them and then ask yourself, what is piquing this pain? What information do I need to learn from this? And I don't know what that is for you, but if that patient triggered you, you ask yourself, what is it? Oh, is it speaking to a part of me that's worried I'm not good enough? Or is it speaking to a part of me that's worried that I'm not providing enough or that I haven't led my team well enough to provide the best care? Or is it a part of me that's worried about not being liked? See, every emotion, even the challenging ones, gives us deeper insight into ourselves, into knowing ourselves better. And that is the key to growth and ascension and our purpose on this earth, which is to know ourselves better so that we can love others more. See, because if we can address that new insight, let's say you've identified it as needing to be liked, needing to be accepted and loved by everyone you meet, needing your patient to like you. Now we have something to work with, because now you can start liking and loving yourself no matter what. You can start giving yourself the unconditional love you're so craving from others, because we're so much more powerful than we think. We have the ability to give ourselves what we need. We never need to find it from outside of ourselves. You know that Miley Cyrus song, I can buy myself flowers, I can hold my own hand? Well, you can love yourself too. And you can give yourself recognition. And you can allow yourself to process your emotions. You don't need anyone else's permission. But it is a critical part of happiness. Clearing ourselves energetically so that we can be our best. Clearing ourselves, processing intellectually so that we can access our forebrain and prefrontal cortex to allow executive function. Clear ourselves spiritually so that we can show up as our highest selves and be our very best for the people in our world. Be our very best for ourselves. Imagine a world where you felt a full range of emotions, where happiness didn't just insist on you being happy all the time, faking it all the time, pretending it all the time, constantly arriving to the higher level self, but giving yourself permission to process the emotions and recognizing when you need to. Maybe it means screaming every single day at the end of the workday. Now, wouldn't that be insight? Wouldn't that be a key and a clue to what's happening in your life? If you're feeling that you're repressing emotions every single day, and every single day you're finding that you need some kind of outlet so that you could show up for your family that evening, otherwise you notice you're suppressing, well, wow, what interesting and critical data you need to make important decisions in your life on what next step to take. See how just allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to recognize those uncomfortable emotions can make an enormous impact in your lived reality and in the choices you make from day to day. And I'm talking the hard choices. Like, is this job serving me? Is this role serving me? Is this position serving me? Or is this exactly what's detracting from my greater happiness? And right there is the gift of the uncomfortable emotions. It gives us insight. Even if your uncomfortable emotion is sadness because you lost someone, sadness because you said goodbye to someone, recognize the insight right there. That relationship meant something to you. That relationship mattered. That communication or love or role in your life was important to you. And right there is the gift. And let the sadness teach you that gift. Let it be okay to experience that sadness, because you would not be sad if that relationship did not matter. But there's greater insight there too, because you felt the love. And if you felt the love once before, you can feel it again. Imagine a world where you allowed yourself to fully feel all the range of human emotions. And maybe you're wondering, I thought I was happy. Right now, I'm beginning to question it. I've just listened to this episode, and now I'm beginning to think, wait a minute, am I happy? Because I don't know if I've felt all the great emotions either. So I've kind of been coasting here. This felt pretty copacetic and okay. I thought this was happiness. Well, I invite you to take my happiness quiz specifically for doctors. So come on over to www.thebizofhappiness.com, and you'll see right at the top of the page is a little link to my happiness quiz. Go ahead and click on it. It's a really simple, easy, short quiz. And as you go through it, you'll get the results. You'll see exactly how happy you are. It really takes a holistic, broad look at your whole life, not just with inpatient care, but financial happiness, emotional happiness, spiritual happiness, relationship happiness, happiness about yourself, happiness within your body. Maybe I've already mentioned some things that made you realize, wait a minute, I'm not sure I've addressed all those aspects of my life. But really, those are all the components that make up a healthy, happy, successful life. So go ahead, www.thebizofhappiness.com. Right there at the top, you'll find the happiness quiz. It's free to take. Go ahead, click on it and take the quiz. And when you get your results, you'll also get some phenomenal suggestions from me. Take it as you will. But maybe flag this podcast episode. Maybe go back and listen to it again after you've taken the happiness quiz. I highly suggest it. And maybe allow yourself to have a slightly new perspective on feeling feelings, even as a doctor. I mean, we deal with patients' feelings all day. We deal with feelings from our team all day. We deal with our families' feelings all day. But have you allowed yourself to deal with your own, to process and feel your own? Remember, when I say when you feel good, you can do good, I mean it. But it doesn't mean when you feel bad, you can't either. It just means that in order to feel good, we've got to allow ourselves to feel the bad. We've got to allow ourselves to feel the uncomfortable. And that's what allows us to feel great. Thank you for joining me here today. It really is amazing and a testament to you that you listen to these episodes and find new perspective. I want you to recognize and honor that part of you, that we're all trying here. We really are. And we have to bring our humanness into the work that we do. Because doctors are not superhuman. We don't live outside of the human condition. And in order for us to truly relate to our patients, and in order for us to truly treat our patients to the best of our ability, we must understand our humanity. And then when you feel good, that's when you can do good. Bye-bye.